So today we're doing a deep dive into information security risk management.
A really crucial topic.
Definitely. And to make this really concrete, let's imagine we're helping a growing tech startup, let's call them Innovate Now, secure their groundbreaking new product.
Good example. Relatable for many, I think.
Yeah, because this isn't just for the IT experts, right? Understanding risk is absolutely crucial for anyone with something valuable they need to protect in the digital realm.
Absolutely. Whether it's Innovate Now's secret algorithms or, your small business client list.
Right. So our mission today is to unpack these sometimes complex concepts, maybe demystify some of the jargon.
Yeah, cut through the noise a bit.
And extract the most important nuggets of knowledge so you, the listener, can feel truly well-informed about safeguarding information for yourself or, your own Innovate Now.
Sounds like a plan.
We'll cover foundational definitions, the detailed process of identifying and assessing risks, and the strategies for managing them effectively for our hypothetical startup and for you.
Let's get into it.
Okay, so let's unpack this first. What exactly is risk management in the context of information security?
Well, at its core, it's really a detailed process.
A process.
Yeah, and the aim is to reduce risk down to what we call an acceptable level.
Acceptable level.
Think of it as being proactive. You're identifying factors that could damage or disclose data.
Like finding the weak spots before someone else does.
Exactly.
Right.
Then evaluating those factors against the data's value and, importantly, the cost of countermeasures.
Oh, the cost factor.
For always. And then implementing cost-effective solutions, it has to make business sense.
So what about the definition of risk itself? That seems pretty fundamental.
It is. And what's fascinating here is how simple it sounds, but how complex it can be. Fundamentally, it's the possibility of losing something of value.
Losing something valuable. Okay.
Imagine a threat, maybe a hacker, right, takes advantage of a weakness in your system, which we call a vulnerability.
The open door we mentioned.
Precisely. When that happens, they can compromise what we often call the CIA triad.
CIA. Not the agency, I assume.
No.
Oh.
It stands for confidentiality, basically keeping secrets secret. Integrity, making sure your data hasn't been messed with. And availability, ensuring information is there when you actually need it.
Confidentiality, integrity, availability. Got it.
It's this dynamic interplay that risk is all about, the possibility of one of those being compromised.
That makes perfect sense. So to ensure we're all on the same page, those fundamental components really are the bedrock of everything else we'll discuss.
Absolutely.
You mentioned a threat and a vulnerability. So if we break that down, what are the essential building blocks we need to wrap our heads around to truly understand risk?
Okay, think of it this way. First, you have the asset.
The valuable thing.
Exactly. For Innovate Now, maybe it's their secret algorithm or their customer database, anything valuable that needs protecting.
Okay, asset.
Then there's the threat. This is anything that could cause damage.
Like the hacker.
Could be a hacker, yeah. Or a natural disaster, like a flood. Or even just an accidental employee error, someone deletes the wrong file.
Right. Threats aren't always malicious.
Not at all. And finally, the vulnerability. That's the weakness in your defenses that a threat can exploit.
The open door again. Maybe Innovate Now's older server software has a known bug.
Perfect example. That known bug is the vulnerability. And here's the simple but really powerful relationship. Risk equals threat times vulnerability. Risk, threat, vulnerability.
Okay, so they multiply.
In concept, yes. If Innovate Now has a strong firewall, low vulnerability, but no one's actively attacking low threat, the risk is low.
Makes sense.
Or if they have that old server, high vulnerability, but maybe it's not connected to the internet, low threat exposure, the risk is contained.
But when a threat finds a vulnerability,
that's where the real danger lies. That's when the risk is high.
Got it.
And we also talk about related terms like exposure, how susceptible something is to loss.
Okay.
A safeguard, that's anything that reduces vulnerability or protects against threats, like a good password policy or that firewall.
Right.
An attack is when someone actually tries to exploit a weakness.
The active attempt.
And a breach is when they succeed, when a security mechanism is successfully bypassed.
Okay, that clarifies the terminology.
Yeah.
So we've outlined these foundational pieces. But what's truly fascinating, you hinted at this, is how this isn't just a single flat idea. Risk management actually lives and breathes at different levels within an organization, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's not just an IT department's problem, locked away in a server room.
It feels like it should touch everything.
Precisely. If we connect this to the bigger picture, risk management applies across the entire enterprise, from the boardroom strategy down to daily operations.
So different levels, like what?
Well, we talk about strategic risks. These affect Innovate Now's long-term goals, their overall direction.
Like a competitor stealing their main product idea.
Exactly. Potential intellectual property theft impacting their market position. That's a big strategic risk.
Okay. What else?
Then you have program and project risks. These are specific to new initiatives. Maybe Innovate Now is launching a new app.
Right.
The risk could be that the launch is delayed, or it has a critical bug that upsets early users. That's a project risk.
And the third level.
Operational risks. This is the day-to-day stuff. It includes both security risks, like the hacking attempts we discussed, and business continuity risks.
Like what happens if the power goes out?
Exactly. Anything that could disrupt the normal flow of business. And each of these levels often feeds into different registers.
Registers, like a list.
Yeah, essentially. A strategic risk register, an information security risk register. It's a way to formally track and manage these risks consistently across the company.
Okay, that makes sense. It connects the dots. So if risk management is all about protection, the crucial first step for Innovate Now is figuring out what exactly needs protecting and from whom. How do they begin that critical identification phase?
That's the absolute starting point, isn't it? Step one is what we call identifying assets.
Finding the valuable.
Finding the valuables. And this is where many people first realize it's far broader than just their laptop or the main server.
Right. It's not just the obvious tech.
Not at all. For Innovate Now, it's definitely not just their fancy new hardware. It's their information.
But the data itself.
The core data they process, store, transmit, like customer lists, source code for their product, even printed design documents, cryptographic keys.
Things you can't just easily replace.
Precisely. Then, of course, the physical hardware. Servers, workstations, all the network devices, routers, switches, firewalls, communication gear.
Yeah, tangible stuff.
And the software running on it. Operating systems, the applications they built, the tools they use.
Okay, information, hardware, software.
Mm.
What else is an asset?
People. Personnel. Top management, the engineers writing the code, the sysadmins keeping things running. They're critical assets.
Hadn't thought of people as assets in this context, but yeah, makes sense.
Definitely. Even the physical locations buildings Innovate Now's office, maybe a data center they use.
Physical security matters too.
Absolutely. And don't forget, utilities, reliable power, internet connectivity, and crucial providers.
Like their cloud hosting company.
Exactly. Their cloud provider, their ISP, they rely on them. And finally, the truly invaluable intangibles.
Intangibles. Like what?
Like the company's image, its brand reputation. Think about Innovate Now. If they have a major breach, the damage to their reputation could be worse than the direct financial loss.
Wow, that's a comprehensive list. It really makes it clear just how much needs safeguarding.
It really does. You have to think broadly.
So once Innovate Now knows what they're protecting all those assets, the next crucial step is finding the weak spots, right?
Correct. The vulnerabilities.
Because, like you said, a fortress with an open back door isn't much of a fortress. What are some common vulnerabilities that companies like Innovate Now might overlook?
That's a great point. Beyond the obvious software bugs, unpatched systems, and whatnot, it's often the human element and maybe outdated thinking that create the biggest vulnerabilities.
A human element, like mistakes.
Mistakes, yeah, but also lack of awareness. Think about weak access controls or password policies. Still using Innovate Now 123 as a default password somewhere. That's a huge vulnerability.
Oh, yeah. Basic stuff, but easily missed.
Or equipment misconfiguration. Maybe a server was set up quickly during a rush and it has default settings enabled that are easily exploited by attackers.
The default settings trap.
Then there's insecure communication data being sent across the network without encryption. Or just using outdated technology, software that's no longer getting security updates. That's just asking for trouble.
And you mentioned human resources.
Critically important. A lack of employee training on security awareness means your staff might easily fall for phishing emails, clicking malicious links.
The #1 way in, often.
It really is. Or poor segregation of duties. If one person has the keys to the entire kingdom, too much access, too much control, that creates a massive single point of failure.
Right, spreading the responsibility.
And don't forget physical location weaknesses. Is the data room easily accessible? Can someone just walk in? It's about looking at every single angle, not just the software code.
It's a holistic view. Okay, so Innovate Now has identified assets and their vulnerabilities. Then they need to think about Who or what could exploit those weaknesses? This is where we identify the threats, right?
Exactly. Step 3, identifying threats. This involves listing all the possible dangers out there. We can broadly categorize them to make it manageable.
Okay, what are the categories?
First, human intentional. This is your classic malicious actor. Hackers, yes, but also disgruntled insiders may be engaging in criminal stuff like espionage or stealing intellectual property. Unauthorized access attempts, social engineering.
Like someone trying to trick an employee into giving up a password.
Precisely. Or even physical intruders trying to get into the building or server room.
Okay, intentional human threats. What's next?
Second, human unintentional errors. These are often overlooked, but frankly, incredibly common.
Just honest mistakes.
Honest mistakes, yeah. Accidental data loss, someone misconfiguring a system, coding errors that create vulnerabilities later, processing errors, buffer overflows sometimes, personnel abusing privileges. Maybe not maliciously, but just carelessly.
So accidents can be just as damaging.
Absolutely. Think of cascade errors, where one small mistake triggers a chain reaction across multiple systems, or changes made to data classification without realizing the implications.
Okay, intentional and unintentional human threats. What's the third category?
Third, natural threats. These are the things entirely out of our control, the acts of God, if you will.
Like earthquakes, floods.
Earthquakes, floods, fires, yeah. But also direct physical damage. Maybe a clumsy worker crushes a server rack or cuts a critical cable.
Oh.
Temperature extremes impacting equipment performance or lifespan. Energy anomalies, power surges, static electricity frying sensitive components, environmental factors generally.
So for Innovate Now, a sudden power outage hitting their office could be just as disruptive as a cyber attack if they aren't prepared.
Precisely. If their systems go down, they can't operate, regardless of the cause.
Okay, assets, vulnerabilities, threats.
Yeah.
Is there a fourth identification step?
Yes, a crucial one, identifying controls. Step 4.
What does that involve?
This is about taking stock, assessing what safeguards Innovate Now already has in place.
Seeing what defenses they currently have.
Exactly. Which existing controls directly address those vulnerabilities or threats you just identified? These controls might fix the weakness entirely, or maybe they just lessen the likelihood or the impact if something bad happens. It's about understanding your starting point, your existing defensive posture.
Okay, that makes sense. You need to know what you have before you can decide what else you need.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So, for Innovate Now, once they know what's at stake, the assets and what the dangers are, the threats and vulnerabilities, and what defenses they have, the controls, how do they actually measure the level of risk? This is where risk assessment comes in, right?
Yes, this is the core of risk assessment. And it's a crucial action, usually driven by upper management, because it informs their decisions about where to invest time and money in security.
So it's not just a technical exercise.
Far from it. It's a business decision tool. Most organizations end up using a hybrid approach, a mix of methodology.
Hybrid. You mean
combining quantitative analysis, which is all about numbers and calculations, dollars and cents, essentially, and qualitative analysis, which is more judgment-based, using scenarios, experience, expert opinion.
Right. So let's get into the nitty-gritty of the quantitative side first, putting a dollar sign on risk. Because like you said, without numbers, it's hard to make a solid business case for spending on security.
Exactly. Budgets demand justification.
So if Innovate Now has that critical customer database, how do they actually quantify what it's worth if that data gets breached? How do you put a number on that?
That's where these specific calculations become incredibly powerful, even if they involve some estimation. Let's walk through it.
Okay.
First, you need the asset value, AV. Let's say Innovate Now determines their customer database is worth maybe $100,000 based on potential revenue, replacement costs, whatever.
Okay, $100 K asset value.
Now, if a specific threat happens, say a data breach, what percentage of that value is lost? That's the exposure factor, EF.
The percentage of damage.
Right. Maybe a breach means they face fines, lose customer trust, remediation costs. Let's say that amounts to 50% of the asset's value being lost. So EF equals 50% or 0.5.
Okay.
So the cost of a single breach, the single loss expectancy, SLE, is the asset value times the exposure factor. SLE equals AVEF.
So $100,000 times 0.5, that's $50,000.
Exactly. $50,000 is the estimated cost each time that specific breach happens to that database.
Wow, okay. That's a concrete number.
But we're not done. How often is this type of breach likely to happen? That's the annualized rate of occurrence, ARO.
The frequency.
The frequency per year. Maybe based on industry stats or past experience, Innovate Now estimates this kind of breach occurs on average, once every 5 years.
So the ARO is 1 divided by 5, which is 0.2.
Perfect. An ARO of 0.2 means it has a 20% chance of happening in any given year.
Okay.
Now, you put it all together to get the annualized loss expectancy, ALE. This is the possible yearly cost of all instances of that specific threat against that asset.
How do you calculate that?
Simple multiplication again. ALE equal SLE ARO.
So the $50,000 single loss times the 0.2 frequency.
Gives you an ALE of $10,000 per year.
$10,000 a year. Okay, that's the number management needs to...
And that's a key number because suddenly investing, say, $5,000 a year in a new security measure like better encryption or monitoring makes a lot of financial sense if it significantly reduces that $10,000 expected annual loss.
Because that $10,000 is the average financial hit they can expect each year from that specific risk if they do nothing.
Precisely. And that leads directly into the cost-benefit analysis for safeguards.
How does that work?
You calculate the ALE before putting in the safeguard that's our $10,000. Then you estimate the ALE after the safeguard is in place. Maybe the new measure drops the likelihood or impact, reducing the ALE to, say, $2,000.
Okay, so an $8,000 reduction.
Right. Then you subtract the annual cost of the safeguard itself. Let's say it was $5,000 per year.
So $8,000 reduction minus $5,000 cost. That's a positive $3,000.
Exactly. That $3,000 represents an annual saving or return on investment for implementing that security control.
That's powerful.
It is. And crucially, the cost of the security measures must not exceed the asset's value or, more accurately, the potential loss you're preventing, the ALE reduction, if the fix costs more than the problem.
Then maybe you don't fix it that way.
Right. Management might choose to accept the risk in that case. It's about optimizing resources. You know, we often see companies overspend protecting easily replaceable assets like standard hardware.
Because it feels tangible.
Exactly. While maybe underinvesting in protecting truly irreplaceable intellectual property because valuing that feels harder, this quantitative analysis helps balance that.
That's a really practical way to frame it.
Yeah.
Okay, quantitative is about the numbers. Now, for something a bit different, qualitative risk analysis. You said this is more scenario-based, relying on judgment and experience.
That's right. It's less about precise dollar amounts and more about understanding risk in relative terms, high, medium, low.
How does Innovate Now use this if they can't put a direct dollar figure on everything, like maybe reputation damage?
Good question. It's very useful for those less tangible aspects. This approach uses techniques like brainstorming sessions with key personnel.
Getting people talking.
Exactly. Or the Delphi technique, have you heard of that?
Vaguely. Remind me.
It involves getting anonymous feedback from experts or stakeholders on a risk assessment. They provide input, it's summarized, sent back out, and they refine their views. It helps reach a consensus without, groupthink taking over.
Removes the loudest voice effect.
Precisely. They might also use storyboarding, visualizing how a threat scenario might actually play out step by step.
Like mapping out an attack path.
Yes. And a very common tool is a risk matrix.
What's that look like?
It's usually a grid. One axis is likelihood. How likely is the threat? The other is impact. How bad is it if it happens? You plot risks on this grid. High likelihood, high impact is obviously your top priority. Low is less concerning.
So it helps prioritize visually.
Exactly. It allows for rapid identification and selection of protection measures based on where risks fall in the matrix. Scenarios are used to describe specific threats like, what if a disgruntled former employee tries to leak our source code? And then the analysis participants assign subjective levels, high, medium, low, to the likelihood and impact of that scenario. It's about getting a good feel for the risk landscape, even without exact financial figures for everything.
That makes sense. So for our listeners who might be running a small business, maybe without a dedicated IT security team, how do these principles, both quantitative and qualitative, simplify down? It sounds complex.
It can seem that way, but it really boils down to 5 key actionable steps for anyone.
Okay, 5 steps. What are they?
First, identify your critical business assets. What really matters to keep your business running?
The essentials.
Second, try to value them. Even if it's just a rough estimate of the impact if that asset was lost or damaged, what would it cost you?
Okay, identify and value.
Third, document the potential impact of their loss. What actually happens if that client list disappears overnight? Or if your website is down for a day?
Think through the consequences.
Fourth, identify the likelihood of that loss or damage happening. Is it a constant worry or a very remote possibility? Use your judgment, Look at what happens to similar businesses.
Assess the chances.
And finally, fifth, prioritize those risks based on likelihood and impact, and then identify potential solutions or controls. What can you realistically do to protect the most important things against the most likely threats?
Identify, value, document impact, identify likelihood, prioritize, and solve.
That's the essence of it. It makes risk management digestible and actionable even for a one-person shop.
That's really helpful. Okay, so Innovate Now has identified assets, vulnerabilities, threats, controls. They've measured the risks using quantitative and qualitative methods. So what does this all mean for them in practice? What are the actual responses and strategies they can take to deal with these identified risks?
Right. The analysis is done. Now it's decision time. Management has to choose a course of action for each significant risk. There are several possible responses.
Okay, what are the options?
The most common and often preferred response is to reduce or mitigate the risk.
Fix it, basically.
Fix it, yeah. Implement safeguards to eliminate vulnerabilities or block threats. Think of Innovate Now putting in that new, stronger firewall or rolling out mandatory security training.
Actively lowering the risk.
Exactly. Or they might assign or transfer the risk.
Hand it off to someone else.
Essentially, yes. Placing the cost of a potential loss onto another entity. Buying cybersecurity insurance is a classic example.
Right. Insurance transfers the financial risk.
Or outsourcing a specific function, like website hosting, to a company that specializes in securing it. You're transferring some of the operational risk and responsibility.
Okay. Reduce or transfer. What else?
Then there's the option to accept the risk.
Just live with it.
Sometimes, yes. This happens when, after that cost-benefit analysis we talked about, management decides that putting in countermeasures would simply cost more than the potential loss justifies.
If the fix costs more than the problem.
Right. Or if the likelihood is incredibly low. Now, accepting risk explicitly leads to what we call residual risk.
Residual risk.
That's the risk that still remains after you've put all your chosen countermeasures and controls in place. You almost never eliminate risk entirely. There's always something left over.
Okay, so acceptance means acknowledging that residual risk.
Acknowledging it and deeming it acceptable for the business. Another response is deterrence.
Trying to scare off attackers.
Pretty much. Implementing deterrence like auditing systems frequently, installing visible security cameras, having security guards, things that make potential attackers think twice.
Makes sense. Any others?
You could avoid the risk altogether.
How?
By selecting alternative options that simply carry less risk. Perhaps Innovate Now is considering storing highly sensitive R&D data on public cloud servers, but decides against it due to the risk, choosing a more secure, private option instead. They avoided the risk associated with the public cloud option.
Changing the plan to sidestep the danger zone?
Exactly. And finally, there's reject or ignore the risk.
That sounds bad.
It generally is. To be clear, this is usually considered an unacceptable and imprudent response in professional risk management. Sticking your head in the sand isn't a strategy.
Right. Okay, so those are the responses. You also mentioned risk control strategies. How do they relate?
They're closely related. The strategies are broader approaches that often employ one or more of those specific responses. There are 5 main ones.
5 strategies. Let's hear them.
First, defense. This strategy aims to prevent exploitation in the first place.
The proactive approach.
Yes, using policies, training, technology like firewalls, and intrusion prevention systems. Ideally, layered security, multiple defenses. For Innovate Now, this is their primary goal.
What are the pros and cons?
Pro, it's generally the preferred all-around approach. Con, it can be expensive and require continuous effort and maintenance. Security isn't set it and forget it.
True. Okay, strategy 2.
Transferal. This aligns directly with the assigned transfer response. Shifting risk.
Like the insurance or outsourcing example.
Exactly. Pros can be relatively easy and effective for specific financial or operational risks. Cons. You become dependent on external entities, you lose some direct control, and you need to manage that third-party relationship carefully.
Right. Trusting your provider. Third strategy.
Mitigation. This focuses on creating plans to reduce the impact or damage if a threat actually materializes and succeeds.
So, planning for failure.
In a way, yes. Planning for when, not if, for certain events. This includes things like having a solid incident response plan for handling a breach.
Knowing who does what when the alarm goes off.
A disaster recovery plan if a server farm gets wiped out by a fire.
How to get systems back online.
And a business continuity plan to keep essential operations running during the disruption.
Okay. Pros and cons of mitigation.
Pros, it's very effective when all else fails. It's your safety net. Cons, it inherently guarantees some level of company loss because it only kicks in after something bad has already happened.
It limits the damage but doesn't prevent it.
Correct. Fourth strategy, acceptance. Again, aligns with the accept response.
Acknowledging the risk, choosing not to control it further.
Right. Often appropriate when the cost to protect genuinely exceeds the potential loss or the probability is extremely low, and you've done the analysis to prove it.
Pros and cons.
Pros, it's cheap and easy, requires no direct action. Cons, it's rarely the best option, and it can be very unsafe if it's not explicitly justified by that thorough cost-benefit analysis. You need to know why you're accepting it.
Can't just be lazy acceptance.
Definitely not. And fifth, termination.
Getting rid of the source of the risk.
Exactly. Removing and discontinuing the information, asset, or activity that creates the risk.
Like decommissioning an old, insecure server.
Perfect example. Or maybe transferring a risky business unit. Or even, in extreme cases related to insider threats, terminating an employee who poses a significant, unmanageable risk.
Pros and cons here.
Pros, can be relatively cheap and very effective at eliminating a specific risk. Cons, it's rarely appropriate because it often requires the company to lose something, an asset, a capability, an employee. It's usually a last resort for specific situations.
Okay, those 5 strategies, defense, transferal, mitigation, acceptance, termination, give Innovate Now a clear menu of options. How do they actually implement these using controls? You mentioned different types.
Right. To put these strategies into action, we use different types of controls, often categorized by how they are implemented.
Okay, what are the implementation categories?
There are 3 main ones. First, administrative or management controls.
What falls under that?
These are your policies, procedures, standards, guidelines, things like hiring practices, security awareness training, data classification schemes, background checks. They focus on people and business practices.
The human and policy side.
Exactly. Second, logical or technical controls.
This sounds like the tech stuff.
It is. Hardware or software mechanisms used to protect assets. Think authentication methods, passwords, biometrics, multi-factor authentication, encryption, firewalls, intrusion detection systems, IDSs, access control lists.
All the computer-based defensive.
Right. And third, physical controls.
Locks and guards.
Locks, guards, fences, security cameras, man-traps, motion detectors, fire suppression systems. Tangible mechanisms you can, well, physically touch that protect spaces and equipment.
Got it. Admin, logical, physical.
And the key is implementing these in a defense-in-depth manner, layering them. Don't rely on just one type of control. A firewall, logical, is good, but it's better with strong passwords, logical admin, and a locked server room door, physical.
Multiple layers, so if one fails, another might catch it.
That's the idea. Maximum benefit through layers.
Now, I think you also mentioned classifying controls based on their purpose or function. How does that work?
Yes, that's another useful way to think about them. What is the control actually trying to do?
Okay, like what functions?
Well, you have deterrent controls. Their goal is to discourage violation in the first place.
Like the security cameras or warning banners?
Exactly. Security policies, warning banners on login screens, visible guards. They signal, don't even try it.
Yeah.
Preventative controls. These aim to stop unwanted activity before it can even occur.
Like the firewall blocking bad traffic.
Precisely. Fences, strong access control mechanisms that deny unauthorized users, data encryption that makes stolen data useless, they block the action.
Deterrent, preventive. Next.
Detective controls. These discover unwanted activity after it has already occurred or as it's occurring.
Finding out something happened.
Right. Things like audit trails that log user actions, intrusion detection systems that flag suspicious network behavior, security camera recordings reviewed after an incident.
Okay, what else?
Compensating controls. These provide an alternative measure or support to an existing control that might be weak.
Like a backup control.
Sort of. For example, if you can't implement really strong access control on a specific old system, maybe you compensate by implementing much stricter monitoring and auditing on it. Or encrypting sensitive data when it's being sent over a network that you don't fully trust.
Making up for a weakness elsewhere.
Exactly. Then corrective controls. These help to return systems or processes back to normal after an incident or security event has occurred.
Fixing the damage.
Fixing the immediate damage, yes. Antivirus software cleaning up a malware infection is a corrective control. Restoring data from a backup after accidental deletion or corruption.
Got it.
Recovery controls are often seen as a more advanced type of corrective control. They're specifically focused on getting the business back up and running after a major disruption, like a disaster.
So disaster recovery stuff.
Yes. Things like having backup data centers, hot sites, cold sites, fault-tolerant systems designed to withstand component failures, server clustering. They enable business continuity.
Okay, one more.
Last one, directive controls. These aim to force or encourage compliance with security policies or procedures.
Telling people what to do.
Essentially, yes. Posted notifications like authorized personnel only, security awareness training, telling employees about required actions, procedures they must follow. They direct behavior.
Wow, that's a lot of ways to categorize controls. Deterrent, preventive, detective, compensating, corrective, recovery, directive.
It helps you think about the role each control plays in your overall strategy. And here's a crucial point, tying back to measurement. If you can't somehow measure a security control's benefit.
If you can't quantify it or evaluate it.
Right. If you can't see how it performs, compare it to alternatives, or track its effectiveness over time, then honestly, it might not be providing the security value you think it is.
So you need metrics.
You absolutely need metrics. Security shouldn't be based on guesswork or just feeling secure. You need data. Monitoring events, logging incidents, comparing performance before and after implementing a control, it has to be data-driven.
That makes perfect sense. Okay, this definitely sounds like a lot of moving parts for Innovate Now, or any organization, really. So how do they tie all of this together, the identification, assessment, responses, controls, into a coherent, manageable strategy? Is there like a master plan?
There is. That's where the risk management framework comes in. Think of it as a comprehensive blueprint or methodology for managing enterprise-level risk systematically.
A framework.
Okay.
What does that involve?
It typically involves a cycle of key activities. Different frameworks might phrase them slightly differently, but a common model, like the one from NIST in the U.S., outlines about 8 key steps or activities.
8 steps. Let's quickly run through them.
Sure. Step 1, categorize the information system. Basically, figure out how critical and sensitive the system and its data are based on potential impact if compromised.
Prioritize based on importance.
Right. Step 2. Select an initial set of baseline or minimum required security controls based on that categorization.
Start with the basics.
Step 3. Supplement those baseline controls based on your organization's specific risk assessment. Add more controls where needed.
Tailor it.
Step 4. Document all the selected controls and how they'll be implemented in a system security plan. Write it down.
The blueprint.
Step 5. Implement the security controls as planned. Actually put them in place.
Do the work.
Step 6. Assess the controls to determine if they are implemented correctly, operating as intended, and producing the desired outcome. Test them.
Check if they actually work.
Step 7. Authorize the information system for operation. This is a formal decision by management based on the assessment results, accepting the remaining risk to the mission or business.
The official go-ahead.
And finally, Step 8. Monitor the security controls continuously. Security isn't static. Threats change. Vulnerabilities emerge. You need ongoing monitoring and improvement.
Categorize, select, supplement, document, implement, assess, authorize, monitor. It's a cycle.
It's a continuous life cycle, yes, not a one-time project.
So if you think about it, an effective information security program for Innovate Now, or anyone, is really like a chain, isn't it?
How so?
It links together those management, operational, and technical controls we discussed with that process of risk assessment sitting right at the very heart of it all.
That's a great analogy.
And the goal is always to strengthen that chain, especially knowing that adversaries, well, they always attack the weakest link.
Always. And your job is to make sure you don't have an obviously weak link and that the whole chain is resilient.
And that really wraps up our deep dive today into information security risk management.
We covered a lot of ground.
We certainly did. We journeyed from defining those core terms, assets, threats, vulnerabilities, risk itself, and identifying them,
to understanding how to actually assess or measure risk, both quantitatively with numbers and qualitatively with scenarios.
And finally, exploring all those different strategies and the vast array of controls available for responding to the risks you find.
And hopefully our goal today wasn't just to, throw information out there,
right,
but really to equip you, the listener, with a solid framework. A way of thinking to make smarter, more informed decisions about safeguarding valuable information, whatever your context might be.
Whether it's your personal digital footprint or running security for a whole enterprise like Innovate Now.
Exactly. The principles scale.
So as you continue to navigate our increasingly complex digital world, here's a final provocative thought for you to maybe mull over.
Okay, let's hear it.
Given that adversaries always attack the weakest link, and technology threats, everything is constantly evolving, how can you continuously adapt your approach to information security risk management? How can you ensure that your most critical assets are always protected without maybe succumbing to the overwhelming and potentially impossible costs of trying to achieve perfect security?
That's the constant balancing act, isn't it? Protection versus cost versus usability versus the ever-changing threat.
Something to think about.